My mom sent a message. "We've deleted your number and changed the locks. You're no longer part of this family." I responded, "Understood. But you forgot one crucial thing." Then I canceled the $4,000 monthly payment covering their house, the one I'd been quietly making for 2 years. 3 months later, their lawyer left a voicemail. "We need to talk immediately." I never contacted back, because by then, the bank had already seized it. I, 29M, stared at my phone screen, reading the message for the third time. The words hadn't changed, but somehow I kept hoping they would. My mother had sent it at 2:47 a.m., which told me she'd been up all night working up the courage. The message was clinical, like she was firing an employee rather than disowning her son. "We had deleted your number and changed the locks. You're no longer part of this family. Don't contact us again." I set the phone down on my kitchen counter and walked to the window. The city lights blurred through what I told myself was exhaustion, not tears. 2 years. 2 years since I'd started quietly paying their mortgage after Dad's small business went under during the pandemic. 2 years since I'd watched them struggle and decided to help without them knowing, because I knew their pride would never let them accept charity from their own son. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same pride that kept them from accepting help was now strong enough to cut me out completely. It had started 3 months ago when my sister discovered I was gay. Not through any conversation or coming out moment, but because she'd gone through my phone when I'd left it at their house during Sunday dinner. She'd found messages between me and my boyfriend, screenshots of which she'd immediately sent to our parents. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Dad had told me I was sick and needed help. Mom had cried and asked where they went wrong. My sister had stood there with her arms crossed, satisfied that she'd exposed what she called my disgusting secret. I tried to explain, tried to reason with them, tried to give them time to adjust, but each conversation had gotten worse. They'd started leaving religious pamphlets on my car. Dad had cornered me at work to lecture me about sin and salvation. Mom had asked my boss if I was corrupting the younger employees. The final straw had come 2 weeks ago during what I thought was going to be a peaceful family barbecue. My sister had brought her new boyfriend, and within minutes of meeting me, he'd started making jokes about keeping his back to the wall. When I'd asked him to stop, Dad had told me to lighten up and stop being so sensitive. That's when I'd snapped. I told them exactly what I thought about their hypocrisy, their cruelty, and their selective Christianity. I'd said things I probably shouldn't have, but I'd meant every word. The last thing I'd said before storming out was that they were toxic and I was done trying to earn their love. Now, 3 days later, I was officially no longer their son. I picked up my phone and typed a response, "Understood. But you forgot one crucial thing." I didn't elaborate. Let them wonder. Then I opened my banking app and navigated to the automatic payments section. The monthly transfer of $4,000 to their mortgage company had been running like clockwork for 24 months. They'd never questioned where the money came from when their mortgage suddenly became current and stayed that way. They'd probably assumed it was some kind of government assistance or bank error that eventually corrected itself. My finger hovered over the cancel button. This wasn't just about money. This was about the house they'd raised me in, the house where Mom had taught me to bake cookies, where Dad had helped me with homework, where we'd opened Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays and argued about everything and nothing. But it was also the house where they'd told me I was broken, where they'd made it clear that their love was conditional, where they'd decided that their prejudice was more important than their son. I pressed cancel. The confirmation message appeared. Monthly payment of $4,000 to Pinnacle Mortgage Services has been canceled. This change will take effect with the next billing cycle. I screenshot the confirmation and sent it to myself, then deleted the evidence from my phone. Then I blocked my family's numbers, changed my own locks, and got on with the business of building a life without them. Update 1. 3 months passed faster than I'd expected. I threw myself into work, got a promotion, started therapy, and began dating someone new. My boyfriend understood what I was going through because his own family had cut him off years earlier. We supported each other through the difficult days and celebrated the small victories. I thought about my family occasionally, usually when I passed by their neighborhood or saw something that reminded me of childhood memories. But I didn't reach out, and I didn't check up on them. I'd meant it when I said I was done. The voicemail came on a Tuesday morning while I was in a meeting. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail. When I listened to it during lunch, everything changed. The caller identified himself as an attorney representing my parents. His voice was professional but urgent. He said there had been some kind of misunderstanding about their mortgage payments, and they needed to speak with me immediately about a financial matter. He left his office number and asked me to call back as soon as possible. I deleted the voicemail without saving it. 2 hours later, there was another voicemail from the same attorney. This time he sounded more desperate. He said my parents were facing foreclosure and that there might be some confusion about who had been making their mortgage payments. He practically begged me to return his call. I deleted that one too. The third voicemail came at 8 p.m. This time it wasn't the attorney. It was my mother, and she was crying. She said they'd discovered that someone had been paying their mortgage for years, and when those payments stopped, they'd fallen behind. She said they were going to lose the house, and they needed help figuring out what had happened. She said she was scared and didn't know what to do. She never said she was sorry. She never acknowledged what they'd done to me. She just wanted help with the money. I blocked that number too. Update 2. The foreclosure notice was public record, so I didn't have to do any digging to find out what was happening. I looked it up online one evening when curiosity got the better of me. The house was scheduled for auction in 6 weeks. Part of me felt sick about it. That house held every childhood memory I had. My height marks were still penciled on the doorframe of the kitchen. The tree I'd fallen out of when I was 8 was still in the backyard. Mom's rose garden was probably blooming right now. But another part of me felt vindicated. They'd made their choice when they decided their prejudice was more important than their son. I'd simply stopped subsidizing their comfortable life after they'd made it clear I wasn't welcome in it. My sister tried to reach me through LinkedIn, of all places. She sent me a message saying there had been a huge misunderstanding and the family needed to talk. She said they'd discovered someone had been secretly paying the mortgage and they suspected fraud. She asked if I knew anything about it. I didn't respond, but I did take a screenshot. The irony of her contacting me through a professional network after they'd told me I was no longer family wasn't lost on me. A week later, she tried again through my work email. This message was different. She was panicked, desperate. She said Mom was having anxiety attacks and Dad wasn't sleeping. She said they were going to lose everything and couldn't understand how their mortgage had been mysteriously paid for 2 years and then suddenly stopped. She begged me to help them figure out what had happened, even if I didn't want to talk to them personally. She promised they just needed information, not money. Still lying, even in desperation. Still refusing to acknowledge what they'd done. I forwarded her message to my spam folder and added her work email to my blocked list. Update 3. The house sold at auction on a rainy Thursday morning in October. I know because I drove by that afternoon and saw the sold sign. The new owners were probably getting a good deal on a house that was worth twice what they'd paid. My parents had 60 days to vacate. I tried to feel guilty about it, but mostly I felt empty. This should have been devastating, watching my childhood home disappear because of my actions. Instead, it felt like closing a book I'd finished reading years ago. That weekend, I ran into my mom's sister at the grocery store. My aunt had always been kind to me, and seeing her felt like encountering a ghost from my past life. She looked tired and sad, and when she saw me, her face went through a series of expressions I couldn't quite read. She asked how I was doing, and I told her I was fine. She nodded slowly and then said she'd heard about some family difficulties. She said she didn't understand all the details, but she wanted me to know that not everyone in the family felt the same way about things. I thanked her and started to leave, but she caught my arm gently. She said my parents had been asking family members for money to catch up on their mortgage, but no one had that kind of cash available. She said they'd been telling people that someone had been fraudulently paying their bills and then stopped, leaving them in financial ruin. The word fraudulently hit me like a slap. Even now, facing homelessness, they couldn't acknowledge what I'd done for them. They'd rather paint themselves as victims of some unnamed criminal than admit their gay son had been keeping them afloat. My aunt studied my face carefully and then asked if I knew anything about their mortgage situation. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I told her I hadn't spoken to my parents in months and knew nothing about their financial problems. It wasn't technically a lie, since I didn't know the specifics of their current situation. But my aunt's expression told me she suspected there was more to the story. She hugged me goodbye and said she hoped things would work out for everyone. As I walked away, I heard her call my name. When I turned back, she said that sometimes people make mistakes when they're scared or confused, but that didn't mean those mistakes couldn't be forgiven. I nodded politely and left, but her words followed me home. Final update. 6 months have passed since the house was sold. I've heard through mutual connections that my parents moved into a small apartment across town. Dad got a job at a hardware store, and Mom started working part-time at a doctor's office. They're managing, but just barely. My sister moved back in with them to help with expenses. Apparently, her boyfriend didn't want to deal with her family's drama and broke up with her shortly after the foreclosure. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so sad. I've started a new relationship with someone who makes me laugh and doesn't care about my complicated family history. We're talking about moving in together, maybe getting a dog. It's the kind of normal, happy future I never thought I'd have. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd answered the attorney's calls, if I'd responded to my sister's messages, if I'd been the bigger person and helped them through their crisis. But then I remember the cruelty in my father's voice when he called me sick, the disappointment in my mother's eyes when she asked where they went wrong, the satisfaction on my sister's face when she exposed my private messages. They made a choice when they decided their love was conditional. They chose their prejudice over their child, their comfort over their family. I simply stopped enabling a dynamic that was destroying my mental health and self-worth. The $96,000 I'd spent keeping them comfortable over those 2 years was money I'll never get back, but it was also money that proved something important. I'd loved them enough to sacrifice for them even when they couldn't love me enough to accept me. Now that money is buying me therapy, funding my new life, and teaching me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. They wanted me out of the family. I gave them exactly what they asked for, along with all the consequences they never considered. I don't plan to contact them again. This story is over, and I'm finally ready to start writing a new one. The house is gone, but I'm still here. And for the first time in years, that feels like enough.